running them now? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of College Blitz here on FTSN. I'm Russ Morgan here with my man Q as always. Q, I know you were in Nashville last week. I definitely want to hear it, but we got college football on the slate started on Saturday. How are we doing?
All was good, man. All was good, brother. I can't complain. We had week 0. We had a little Farmageddon from Dublin. It ended up being a really good game, man. It was definitely an entertaining game. Super rainy.
Sloppy for sure.
Sloppy, yeah. Rough start to the game, but it ended up being a fun game, man. It ended up being an entertaining one. I got to see a little bit of it while I was in Nashville, and but definitely glad it's back. And man, we got week 1, man. We're in it now. We're in it now.
I am my mom's coming in tomorrow, and I'm.
Have you prepared her? Have you prepared her? So have you prepared her?
She knows the situation. She lives with my dad and my brother. She knows the situation, and she'll watch sports. Like, she's not like your anti-sports person, but like my mom is good. She does her own thing. Like, we went to Cancun for my sister's wedding, and like my aunt and uncle are there, and we're going to dinner, and I literally go there to tell my dad, I'm like, I saw mom like 4 times, and she's just kind of like doing her own thing, walking on the beach, listening to podcasts, not being around people. She does her own thing. So she's here to see my niece. Like, she wants to hang out with the baby. So like my brother-in-law, I told him the games. He's like, yeah, we're just gonna have to tell Annie, like, take Sophia, go to dinner with your mom. My sister was all happy because she's like, oh, they'll just go get drinks and get dinner. I'm like, we just need to be home watching football. And he's got like an 85-inch, was it the screen TV?
Yeah.
Which is a little big, but it's like amazing football experience on that. I mean, it's massive, but it's good. She knows the situation. This week 1, we're going to be locked into the couch and watching football, and we had football last week. Very sloppy for about 3 quarters, but I mean, it's football. That 4th quarter was great. Yeah. I would say, my man Anthony Beck's son, Rocco Beck, turned it on. Yep. And I said it on Tuesday. I don't think the Big 12 might not be the best conference, but I think it might be like we said last week, the most interesting conference for sure.
Dude, the Big 12, and you said it right, and we mentioned it last week. You got to pay attention to the Big 12. Nobody's ever going to confuse it for the best conference. But let me tell you what, top to bottom, quarterback wise, I don't know that there's many better quarterbacks when you're looking at all the rest of the conferences, top to bottom. Draft eligible type quarterbacks, hard to find across the rest of the conferences. So they're going to be entertaining for sure. And I always think a conference is entertaining when you can't really pick a winner, right? You look at all the rest of the conferences, right? We talk about them. I think you can narrow it down to 3 or 4. I think in the ACC you're looking at realistically 2. You can add 1 dark horse in there. In the SEC you're looking at probably 4 to 5. The Big 10 3 to 4. But the Big 12, if you told me Kansas was going to win it, it wouldn't shock me. If you told me Colorado was going to win it, it wouldn't shock me. If you told me Iowa State was going to win it, it wouldn't shock me. So there's a lot of parity in that conference, man, and a lot of good quarterback play. And they may not be those household names that I think maybe you get in the SEC and you've got in the ACC with Klubnik and Carson Beck, Kevin Jennings, and that sort of thing. But I think across the board in that Big 12, and we're not the only ones saying it. I think people across the country are saying it. I think before the end of the season, there's a lot of quarterbacks here that you're really, really going to know well when it's all said and done. Josh Wingate, what's going on, buddy?
Josh, how we doing tonight? Just getting geared up for Saturday. I hope everything's good with your family. You're locked down, locked to your TV. Make sure that's all good.
Damn right. It started tonight. Right before we got on, I was watching USC Boise State, and
I hope
Brown was running people over. So yeah, it's
all you gotta say, Q, is I hope Brett Musburger isn't calling the game on Monday because he might have a heart attack being in Miami.
he's gonna be looking in the crowd, being creepy as hell.
I was watching Ed Ogeron on, and he was talking about Texas, and he was like coming into Texas. He's like, first off, they parked us like 500 yards from where we were supposed to be. Second, we have to walk through the Texas student section, and the first 3 rows, he goes, it's 3 rows of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I can't imagine that's not true. Can't imagine that is not the truth. So, I could definitely see that for sure. Not much pushback for me on that one. So
no, same here.
Man.
I'm sure Miami's very similar too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Josh Brindley said, we'll see how Gunnar Stockton, the Georgia Bulldogs, or everything rides on the QB this year. I wouldn't push back on that, Josh. I wouldn't push back on that. I think, we're really going to get to see here, I'm sure, not game 1 against Marshall for Georgia, but as the year goes on, I think we're really going to see, if what a lot of the Georgia fan base is claiming that they're better off with Gunnar Stockton. We're going to see how true that is. He's going to get his chance. We'll see. I tend to say no, not because I don't think Gunnar Stockton is a good quarterback. I just think Carson Beck is a better quarterback. I
was watching SportsCenter, and I can't remember the girl's name. She's on SportsCenter all the time, and she's a Georgia fan, and she's like just talking up Gunnar the whole time. The other guy was like a Miami, might have been Clemson or Miami, one of those. So they're making like a bet on who's winning, and she's just chit talking back and talking all up Gunnar Stockton. I'm like, same thing. He could be great. Let him play a game. I mean, like, I can't really put too much on him, say too much from having to come into the college football playoff last year and relieve Carson Beck when he got hurt. You can't really, put him on there. But like, let him play a couple games, play a big school before we crown him better than Carson Beck.
Yeah, I think week one won't tell us much, right? Like I said, it's Marshall. So I don't expect him to struggle a whole bunch against them. But as the season goes on and the schedule gets tougher, time will tell. We'll see how he does on the road in some of these stadiums, in the SEC, and all that'll play out. We'll get to see, what the truth really is, and we'll get to see if what so much of the Georgia fan base is claiming is the truth. Again, I would imagine that most people, given the opportunity, would take Carson Beck over Gunnar Stockton on August, 28th, 2025. We'll see if that holds true come into the season. I believe that's going to be the case, but we'll see how it goes.
Definitely. Going into that game, I was really, I think Avery, going into that Kansas State Iowa State game week 1, and I 100% agree with you on the Big 12. Some really good quarterbacks, maybe not household names. One name that I think might have a better year, and I'm an Arizona fan, is Noah Fafita, who didn't have a great year last year, but I think that was the change of, Jed Fish going to Washington. Had a great sophomore year at Arizona, but then changed off. I think he's going to have a better year. But, looking at the Big 12, I put Iowa State right there, and even though Kansas State lost, still right there to at least make it to the Big 12 championship game. But, I could still see BYU do it. They're a tough team. Baylor. Would it surprise me if Colorado made it there? Yes, with all they lost, but I don't know. Houston with Willie Fritz.
Willie Fritz, yeah, came over from Tulane.
Can you count out Oklahoma State?
No, listen. Oklahoma State is the first year in a long time that I've saw some of the projections and basically showed them as having like no chance, which is a little bit surprising, given what Mike Gundy has done there over the course of his career. That guy's been really, really good. It's turned out some good NFL players, especially on offense. So a little bit surprised, and I can't say I know too much about the program or I've read up on them a whole bunch. I'm really not sure how they look, but apparently the projections are not great. But some of those.
In my opinion, Oklahoma State. Sorry to cut you off there. Even if they're not projected to be good, they're always a team that's gonna, even if they don't, project to win, they always can find a way to sneak out a big win and upset some team. Mike Gundy's got those guys going, and I think in the Big 12, it's interesting. Rich Rod going back to West Virginia, what he's gonna do when he had the Pat Whites and the Tavon Austins when he was running it there. Now he's back.
Running the Wildcat and doing all that stuff. Yeah,
Pat White and Steve Slayton.
Yeah, man, that was a hell of a running attack, man. Yeah, again, man, like we talked about, man, Big 12 super interesting. You mentioned Iowa State. They lost a lot. With the two receivers, Jaden Higgins and I can't remember the other guy's name. Yeah, that went to Houston. Yeah, ended up going to both of them landed in Houston. Funny enough, first ever second round pick with a fully guaranteed contract was Jaden Higgins. So that was pretty interesting. But they lost a lot, but they still got Rocco Beck, right? It's still really well coached with Matt Campbell. You're looking at Colorado. They're interesting, based on who they lost, especially right how they're going to replace those guys. I mean, the Caden Salter looks like he's going to be pretty good. Obviously, the young 5-star kid, Juju Lewis, right? He's kind of the guy that everybody wants to see, but they'll be interesting. Also, I think Kansas State has a good shot with Avery Johnson, even though they lost that first game. And then after the game, his dad and his brother ended up getting into a fight, in the parking lot. I don't know if you saw the video to that. I was like, did you see that?
Yeah.
You didn't see that, dude? His dad and his brother fought like clear as day. They've got the video. They fought in the rain in the parking lot after the game.
Dad and brother?
They were like rolling around on the ground, fighting. His dad and his brother.
That's hilarious.
His dad and his brother got in a fight.
I was like, they got into a fight with the Iowa State.
No. They fought each other. So, that was, they lost the game, and then, they're doing a little PR cleanup. They put out a joint statement after the game. It wasn't a good look. But even with that, I think Kansas State, come into the year, I think they're a talented team. That kid Dylan Edwards went out, basically play one. But I think if they're healthy, I think they could have something to say. Baylor could be good. So yeah, man, I think the Big 12 will be it'll be a fun conference to watch. And like I said, a lot of good quarterbacks right there. That'll be
good quarterbacks. Honestly, I know this isn't like a must-watch game. I wouldn't honestly sleep on Kansas State's game on Saturday, playing North Dakota State.
Ooh.
That team is I know it's FCS. They always find a way to put a scare on you or beat you. I wouldn't sleep in you lose Dylan Edwards for a couple weeks is down. That's a big loss. But yeah. I did like Rocco Beck's composure to kind of, very sloppy game in Dublin there, very, wet. His composure, he looked good, used his legs, played off his legs in that game because it was probably a little harder to throw. And I liked, his fourth quarter.
Oh yeah, game was good. It was entertaining, even with the rain, right? It was great to see it back, man. No matter the weather conditions or whatever it was that was going on, again, ended up being a way more entertaining game than what the weather would have led you to believe, or what the start would have led you to believe, right? Because it was just again sloppy, but again, it was the weather. For very first couple drives of the season, and so. I wasn't that terribly surprised. It sucked that Dylan Edwards went out as early as he did. Obviously, a guy who was a game changer for Kansas State. Kid's a stud, man. Didn't realize also he's from the area, like right there near Manhattan, Kansas, which I did not know he was from there. So again, made it just a natural, transition for him to go from Colorado back to, back home to Kansas State. But yeah, man, the the slate looks good, man. You know, we definitely can't complain about what we have for week 1. I mean, literally tonight, you know, just a quick glance. At 9 o'clock, we got Nebraska, Cincinnati, which, you know, could be pretty good. But you're looking at 2, 4, 6, 8. There's like 16, 18 games tonight. You move to tomorrow night, not as many, but 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You got about a dozen games, you know, tomorrow. You know, none of them that terribly great, but again, it will be football that'll be on TV. You know, Illinois played Western Illinois. That's really the only ranked game. Kansas plays. Oh, Colorado, Georgia Tech is tomorrow night. That's going to be interesting. That'll be a more interesting game than I think people are giving that one credit for. I'm definitely tuning in for that.
I think anytime Colorado's, just because of the prime factor, they're must watch.
Yeah.
You know, and definitely, you know, not having his son there, and he's never coached a game without his son.
Exactly.
It will make it interesting.
Yeah, that'll be good, man. But I think it's even more so than that, man. Hey, Georgia Tech. I've seen a lot of projections, man. A lot of people's dark horse.
Yeah.
A lot of people's dark horse, man. They look good. I think they're going to be one of those teams that a lot of people don't want to play, man. They're good on, even though they lost Eric Singleton. I think they're still going to be good on offense with Haynes King and Jamal Haynes and that defense. You know, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by what Georgia Tech is this year.
I don't think a lot of people want to see Georgia Tech. It's not a team that's going to jump off the tape for anything, because it's not a sexy game, but they play the game the right way, and they're coached well. They come in prepared every week, and yeah. I mean, you saw that at the end of the year when they probably should have beat Georgia. I mean, they're a very well coached team, and they don't overlook anybody. So that's a must-win game. I don't know if you were listening to the game, and I kind of found it funny. The stadium in Dublin's like this. Mm-hmm. So it's like slanted down on one side because the neighbors complained and said, hey, it's blocking our view and sun when it comes in. So they made it like this for the neighbors. And I was listening to the, you know, the guys on the TV, and they're like, yeah, that would never happen in America. They'd just be like, yeah, go screw yourself.
100%. Yeah. Not even close.
We don't care.
Not even close. Nobody would bat an eye at that. Be like, all right, go build your own stadium. Build it how you want to. When you get to build your own stadium, you get to build it how you want to. Until then, shut up. So
that or go buy a new home. Go sell your house and go move somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Either way, your choice. But
it was football, and it was a good game, so I wasn't complaining.
It was a good game, not nearly as good a game as last year's opener in Dublin when Georgia Tech beat Florida State. But you know, I digress. You know, so yeah, definitely good game. Definitely.
Well, that was a great game, but one team actually played good, and the other team just went in a complete disarray.
Yeah. Definitely. You know, teams that definitely went in very opposite directions. You know, after that week 0 game for sure. One team actually.
I mean, and in my opinion, that game, even though Florida State had a poor year, kind of made people aware that Georgia Tech is a team to be reckoned with. They're not just, you know, your average team. They come in every week prepared to play. Even though Florida State was weak, I think that game on a national spotlight they were kind of made people more aware of what Brett Key and Georgia Tech has going there. And as you see, do I think they could win? You know, make it to Charlotte? I don't know, but is there a chance? There's definitely a chance with that team because they're very well coached and very well disciplined.
Yeah, listen, I think at the time, obviously because nobody in their right mind, regardless of what you thought or didn't think about Mike Norvell, what you thought or didn't think of the team, the program, nobody had money on them going 2-10. Like nobody expected that. So I think the win at the beginning of the year definitely felt bigger, right, when it happened. Obviously, come end of the year, given, they're at the end of the day, they were a 2-10 team. So the win definitely doesn't look as good. But that didn't affect what Georgia Tech did, right? They went on to have a really good, surprising season, I think, to a lot of people, and I think made people, really aware and put themselves on the map in terms of being a team that won't be an easy out. Like you mentioned, man, they're well coached. They don't beat themselves. They don't make a bunch of mistakes and shoot themselves in the foot. They got a veteran quarterback. They got a really good running back. Good O-line. I think really good feisty defense. So that's going to be a team that a lot of people are like I said are going to be bitten by. Even though they had a good season last year, Georgia Tech just kind of sleepwalks. I think into people's schedule. They don't really process that game. I don't think as a game that's going to be tough. But I think at the end of the season, I think I wouldn't call for them. Again, we made our predictions. Definitely not picking Georgia Tech to be in the ACC title game, but I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked, to be honest. Would I be a little surprised? I would be, just because I think they're not as talented as Miami and Clemson. But after Miami and Clemson, man, I think it really is a toss-up in terms of who the third best team is. I think most people would probably pick Louisville. But again, any given Saturday, Georgia Tech could beat any team in the ACC. I truly believe that.
I mean, I know Haynes King isn't your typical quarterback. I've seen Mason Miller a lot. I'd take Haynes King over Mason Miller. I think Mason Miller has more upside and projection. I think
Mason. Who you mean, Miller Moss?
Miller Moss, yeah.
Yeah, Miller Moss from Louisville, you mean, right?
From Louisville, the
yeah,
US.
Yeah, Miller Moss.
I think he's got a higher ceiling.
Yeah,
in the landscape of college football, I'll take Haynes King because you know what he's going to bring you every week. I think the ceiling's higher. We saw what Miller Moss did week one, but what is he going to do every week in and week out? And there's a reason he's not at USC anymore.
Yeah. Listen, at this point, you're right. I mean, we know what Haynes King is, right? If you're comparing the two, both kids, highly recruited kids, obviously, right? Highly recruited guys, I should say, right? Both of them super highly recruited. Obviously, Miller Moss at USC didn't pan out the way, the projections led you to believe, he was going to turn out, right? Obviously, playing for a guy like Lincoln Riley, a guy who's coaching on multiple, Heisman winners. I think anybody who commits to that guy expects to be made into a top tier, college quarterback and be in the running to be drafted high, right? And that didn't work out for Miller Moss. And we'll see, man. He's going across the country, to a guy who just he fits in with the ACC and a guy who's just really slept on and not mentioned among the best in the country. We talk about a guy like Jeff Brom, a guy who knows offense, a guy who doesn't put together top 5, top 10 recruiting classes, but always gets more from his players than what the ratings will lead you to believe he's going to get, right? Those guys always play well on offense. He does really well in the portal. Guys want to go play for him coming out of the portal, and they're loaded on offense, man. If Miller Moss does what he's supposed to do, they got, really good running backs. They got good receivers, and so that's a team that, again, I wouldn't be shocked to see, in the ACC title game either. I think they're going to win a lot of games in the ACC this year.
Yeah, 100%. But, I mean, we brought up Clemson, but going into this week, we got three major games, and then we got a couple other good games that I know you're probably ready to trash on with one team that's up north, closer to you.
I would never.
Yeah,
I think I know what you're talking about.
Closer to you up north there in the south, up there in the Panhandle. But I mean, kicking it off, obviously right off the bat, we got Arch Madness versus reigning college football champion there in Ohio State in Columbus. What are your expectations going into this game? Because I mean, everybody knows the hype Arch has, and Ohio State just won the national title, and but they did lose a lot. What are your expectations coming in? Now we got two very young quarterbacks who have taken none to limited snaps in football.
First and foremost, right? big noon kickoff, right? Saturday, the Saturday slate, kicks off with that one, man. It doesn't get much better than that when you're talking about, depending on it was 1 versus 2. Now it's looking like it's 1 versus 3 officially with Ohio State at 3. But regardless, man, you're looking at Arch Manning heading to the Horseshoe, right, in Columbus, and SEC versus Big Ten. They've been talking smack to each other during the off season and what one conference wants and what the other one wants, and which voice matters most in the whole deal. So Big Ten with 2 straight national titles. SEC doesn't like to lose those things, right? They've obviously been the dominant conference over the course of 20 years or so, maybe longer. But yeah, man, you got to be excited about this one, man. Arch Manning finally, gets the keys to the Ferrari, right, and goes on the road to play against Ohio State. Listen, this is one of those games to me. You're looking at 2 teams that lost a ton, right? Ohio State, defending national champs, they lost. I don't know how many players they had drafted, 14, 15, something like that. A bunch of them, really high, and you have that many players drafted, and you still have the 2 best players in the country by most accounts, right? Jeremiah Smith, at receiver, Caleb Downs at safety. So still a lot of talent on that team. I know, the line is Ohio State 1.5, right? And that's that's one of those lines. I think it's come down because I think early on, it was 2, 2.5, something like that. So it's come down some. To me, who can replace what they've lost quickest, right? Because Texas lost a ton too, right? But kind of similar to another game we're going to talk about later, right? Arch Manning, obviously not with as much experience, but more experience than Julian Sayin has at Ohio State, right? So to me, super excited about that game. Definitely going to be watching it. If I'm picking a winner, I like Texas going on the road to beat Ohio State simply because I think with a starting quarterback in Arch Manning, who, again, without a ton of experience, but has, I think, enough experience that I don't think, based on pedigree, based on the experience he's got and the whole deal, I don't think he's going to be intimidated by the environment. I think you're looking at Ohio State, a team that not only did they lose a ton on the field, but let's not forget they're replacing 2 coordinators, right? We're going to see if Brian Hartline can really coach. We know he can recruit. We know he can recruit the wide receiver position. That's been established. We know that for a fact. We're going to see if he can call plays. We're going to see if he can coach the offense, right? If he can coordinate the offense. On the other side of the ball, same thing, right? You lose Jim Knowles, you replace him with Matt Patricia. You got to like the pedigree, right? Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator and all that under Bill Belichick. But we'll see, right? They had a hell of a defense last year. That's a lot to replace. You have to replace a starting quarterback. You have to, you're giving them a new OC, and then they've got a new DC. Not to mention everything that they're replacing in terms of both sides of the ball. I think it's going to be a great game early, but I think Texas pulls away late. I got Texas winning that on the road.
I mean, I'm really split on both teams. I think both teams have things going for them that, other than the quarterback, that Texas, yes, they lost a lot, but they still have a very strong running game. Whereas Ohio State's bringing in a couple new running backs, but you still have the best offensive and defensive players on the field with Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. I kind of go into the Urban Meyer scenario on this for both quarterbacks. Just give me 2 or 3 first downs, do your job, don't make mistakes, and we'll win the game. And the defense will take, and that's in Saturday's scenario. If Arch Manning or Julian Sayin is throwing 35 to 40 times a game, 45 times a game, your team's probably not winning. If you get a nice, if Sayin or March or Arch are a nice, 18 for 30 or, 18 for 25, I think either team is looking good to win that ball game. But I don't think, and I would probably put more on Ryan Day and their offense, that you want to minimize Julian Sayin's ability to have to make plays and do stuff like that, even though you do have Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate, just because it is his first game. I think Ohio State can pull it out purely on it's in Columbus, and they have very good defense. But do I think it's going to be – would I be surprised if Texas win? No, I think this is going to be a field goal game at the most, if not 1 or 2 points, and it comes down to the last drive.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see how that one plays out. I honestly, again, I think they both got a lot to replace. I think the replacing both coordinators is going to be a lot. Game one, especially opening up. If you were opening up against Western Michigan or something like that, then I probably wouldn't be too terribly worried about it. But I think game one, opening up against a team like Texas, who brings continuity, right? A team that's going to start Arch Manning, a team that even with what they lost, right? They lost a lot on the O line. Ohio State lost a lot on the D line. I know Ohio State has the 2 best players, but again, man, Jeremiah Smith is what, as a receiver, you're quarterback dependent, right? Are they going to be able to get Julian Sain time? Are they going to confuse Julian Sain, game one? I just, again, he just hasn't played any significant snaps, right? And now you're starting the season, at home, replacing a national title winning quarterback with a new OC. I just think it's too much to overcome. I don't see them winning it. Like I said, I got Texas pulling away late in that one. So I think especially early on, again, I think it'll be a good game. Obviously, 2 of the top, programs in the country, 2 of the best teams in the country. Those guys recruit they pick and choose, right? They're 2 of the teams that pick and choose. Most teams recruit them along with Georgia. Those programs, they pick and choose. It's, hey, I want you, I want you, I want you, I want you. That's how they recruit, right? So, top 3 to 5 recruiting classes every year. Sarkisian can recruit his ass off, and so it's going to be really interesting, man. But I think this one, I think Ohio State, they end up losing this one.
Either way, at the end of the day, neither of us have a dog in the fight. We just want a good football game. That's all I really want.
Absolutely, bro.
Is a good football game.
That's all I'm looking for.
Quickly, we're going to go quickly with Alabama playing FSU. And on Touchdown in Paradise, the other college show that we do, not, the Caneswear show, obviously, that we do here, we're picking the Alabama game, doing the spread and the money line, the over-under. I think it's going to be a nasty game. I don't think a first game, new quarterback, but the other guy picked Florida State to cover. I got a lot of Miami people I talk to. Thomas Castellanos is chirping heavily. I'm going to Alabama to cover, and it's 14 points. But I know I'm talking to a lot of Miami people who have heard from him. He's chirping Alabama, so I think Alabama will want to make a statement this week up in. Are they in Tallahassee or are they?
They're in Tallahassee.
Okay, I'm ready for a statement, but we got two games in the ACC this week, and both teams that we predict and most everybody predicts being there in Charlotte at the end of the year are playing big slate games this week, with Clemson playing LSU, Miami with Notre Dame. Going to that Clemson game, what are you thinking? Because, if I look at – people are projecting big year from Cade Klubnik. This is the year he's going to go. He's going to be if we take Arch out there, Cade Klubnik's going to be the first quarterback off the board. But then on the other side, you got Garrett Nussmeier, who in my opinion, is the best quarterback. If he could, would be the best quarterback in 2026. So, what are you looking for in this game?
Man, 4 versus 9, right? In Clemson, LSU, Chip Kelly, with Brian Kelly as head coach. They have not been good in openers, man. I don't know if you noticed their record over the last few years. They've lost a bunch of openers
I think it's like 3 in a row.
I think more than that.
I know 3 was like FSU last year.
Yeah, and granted, they've opened up, right, even with Jaden Daniels there and the whole deal. They lost the opener to Florida State. And so, and again, they didn't start off with a cupcake either, right? They're at Clemson. Obviously the headliners there are Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier.
And the headliner is who's the real Death Valley.
Yeah. So will the real Death Valley please stand up? Obviously, they both have their claim to the name. I think most people would probably go LSU, but I guess it just depends on if you wear orange or yellow. But I think it's going to be a good game, man. Two of the most hyped quarterbacks in the country. All the projections have those guys going at the top of next year's draft. Listen, man. I have to see it from Cade Club making the biggest games, right? They lost. They were 0-3 against the SEC last year, and Cade Club they came up short every time they lost last year, right? And so, 2 regular season losses. The loss in the playoff. And all 3 times he came up short, right? And so, I think Kate Klubnik feasted on some of the lesser programs. Didn't look so great against the SEC when he played. And, we'll see what this year, brings, right? Put up great numbers, right? And that team's going to be really good, man. They're loaded at receiver. They got 2 of like the top 10, defensive players in the country, right? And Parker and Woods. And so, great at DB. I think they're loaded, man. They've got no excuse this year. They brought in a couple pieces, which they hadn't done previously, in the portal. And I think they solidified that team as definitely, a contender and a team that a lot of people are looking at in terms of, being a potential, national title contender, not just a playoff contender. Everybody's got them winning the ACC. It's basically a foregone conclusion. I don't even know why they're playing the season this year because everybody's saying, well, they're going to win it. They're going to win it. I guess we'll see. But obviously a very good team. And LSU, same thing, right? I think you always got a chance, with that team and the way Brian Kelly recruits, right there. Garrett Nussmeier, I don't know, man. What I've seen from him, I think he's good. I haven't seen these like elite traits from Garrett Nussmeier. He's not a super great athlete. I don't think he's got a cannon for an arm or anything like that, which again, you don't necessarily need, but I just don't think he does anything like super great, right? I think he's a good quarterback, right? And so, it's crazy to me, not to make it all about Miami, but Carson Beck in the year he had this past year was basically the exact same in a down year that Garrett Nussmeier had in his best year, and then all of a sudden now Nussmeier is this presumptive, possible number 1 pick in the draft. It's kind of interesting how that works, but. Again, I don't think Garrett Nussmeier has really proven anything, to this point. And again, I'm not super, impressed by Garrett Nussmeier. We'll see another year in college, another year in the offense, and we'll see what they look like. But man, you got to be excited for the game, another interconference game with LSU going on the road. But this one to me, I'm not as sure about. The line is Clemson, minus 4.5. I'm going Clemson in this one. I'm gonna pick them. I'm gonna pick them to not cover the 4.5. I think it'll be a really close game, but I've got Clemson. Over-unders 57.5. I could see them. I could see it going over the over-under over 57.5. But I think I'd probably go LSU in the points, but still, I've got Clemson winning that.
I wouldn't go the over week 1 in these games just because it's not like the NFL where they don't have tune-up games. So I think the defense would be stronger. But
it could be, but they have continuity, right? They have continuity on offense.
I'm with you. I think Nussmeier has potential, and I think that's why everybody hypes up potential. They're like, let's see Nussmeier do it. I'm going Clemson. I know all my Notre Dame friends will tell me the same thing. Brian Kelly can't win the big game, and he was proven at Notre Dame, and he lost back-to-back to Florida State, then lost to a not very good USC team in week 1. I think this is the year Cade Klubnik's going to. He had a quietly good year last year. What he was like 36 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, but you lose 3 games the SEC. Those are the big games that you need to step up with. I'm looking for Klubnik, 3rd year in that Gary Riley system, which was so high-powered at TCU since he's come over. I'm not sold on Brian Kelly being able to win the big games. I think Dabo is a little more experienced. Home field advantage will play big time, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a great game. First off, you're saying everybody's calling Clemson to win the ACC. I get it, but like, why to play? Nobody called SMU to win the ACC last year. So I mean, maybe we get a surprise. I mean, that's why we love. That's why you play the season. Why we love college football. Because who would have predicted SMU to win the ACC?
Arizona State was predicted to finish last in the Big 12, and they won it. Right, so surprises happen every year.
That's why you play the season. That's why we wake up at 10. You turn the TV on at 9 a.m. and watch College Game Day. You don't. You just you're up sitting there like it's 9 o'clock.
Guilty.
Oh, 100%. And going off but I'm with you. I go with Clemson before we get to the one lone big time game on Monday. I think there's a game on Monday, but no one cares about it.
The Monday night game is it's TCU at Chapel Bill. So that.
But I mean, before we get to Miami Notre Dame game, because I know everybody wants to hear about that. Big shout out to Lee Corso doing his last headgear on Saturday. I am sad he's gone, but I'm also kind of happy, just not because I grew up with Lee Corso. I love it, everything he did. I was just, when I would see him on screen the last couple of years, I was like, I don't want to see him. Mm-hmm. He's deteriorating in front of my eyes. This isn't something I enjoy to watch, to see an old man who had health concerns, who's now can't remember much because of what I'm like. So I'm sad because I grew up with Lee Corso and what he did, what his energy for game day and what game he turned College Game Day in is. I grew up with that, and I'm sure you were the same. Yeah. But I'm happy. I'm like, Lee. For me, it's like, Lee, everything you did, college football was a lot to you, but it's time to just sit back and do your last headgear and sit back and just watch college football. Because I was getting a little depressed seeing him where he couldn't remember things on camera.
Yeah, I'm just like you in that sense, right? Man, from such a young age, watching him. On the show, man, always an entertaining guy, but the last couple of years for sure were a little bit difficult to watch, man. They pick and choose when they were going to have him on camera. And, even when they did, man, it was just hard to really, see him like that. You couldn't put a sentence together. You couldn't remember everything. I mean, it just, he kind of was slurring words and the whole, obviously, again, you have to obviously recognize the fact, he had a stroke, right? So obviously a very serious, health scare and everything, but especially for that reason, man, I think, that was something that I think probably should have been, changed. I'd say at least, last year, right? He shouldn't have been on TV last year, right? He continued to have issues last year. He missed some shows based on his health and everything like that. So, again, I would imagine at this point, the travel has to be, tough for him. I mean, he's based in Florida, I think right there in Orlando, if I'm not mistaken. So I would imagine some of these trips, even if you're flying, right, lap of luxury in a private jet and the whole deal, you're still having to fly across the country and having to get an early start and do all that. And so, again, man, I think it's run its course, man. I think he's had, a hell of a run. Obviously have been super, entertaining for a lot of years. But I think, not only, with his health the way it is, but I think College Game Day is in a good place, man. I think, with Nick Saban there, with Pat McAfee there, obviously you've got Herb Street and Desmond Howard, man. I think they form
you got Saban on there. You got Saban. Yeah. I mean, with Corso, I'm like, there's no denying the impact of what he did for college football and bringing on the national stage. That, he puts your headgear on sometimes and people would be booing him because he got too many wrong. But like what he did or him calling the little fan, the Yale, go Bulldogs. And he's like, not so fast, midget.
Yeah. Yeah. Or when he said, that dog is ugly.
Yeah. Or, him just, dropping a
the F-bomb.
F-bomb once. Oh shoot, against like what was it, Carl Lewis,
and he had the Sooner though, and he
but I mean, it was time, and anytime you got Nick Saban on there, sometimes it's like, hey, Pat, Kirk, Desmond Howard, shut up, stop talking, and let Nick Saban just talk, because and honestly, I've always liked Saban, but I get why people don't like Saban. Like, he's a dick, but that's who he is. Like, I appreciate. I'm like, he knows that's who he is, and he's not changing himself for you. He's like, this is who I am. I'm going to be myself. So I appreciate that. But I'm like, stop talking. Just let Coach Saban talk, and we'll go. I don't know if you saw last year, and they're like in the middle of commercial break, and like Little John Snap Your Finger comes on, and Pat McAfee's dancing, and you just look at Saban, and he's just stone cold, like looks at him like, God, you're a fool.
Yeah, but, I've seen a lot of memes, and gifs about that one. Right? It's like, the kid with ADHD, and then the straight A student, and it's Saban looking down like he's laser focused, and then Pat McAfee's he's doing the Pat McAfee. I like Pat, man. I think he brings a cool element to that show, man. I'm glad they got him on there. Now you see with change the subject a little bit. You see what Big Noon did, right? They brought in Dave Portnoy.
Did they? No, I did not.
And Big Ten people are not thrilled because Portnoy is obviously a very, very staunch, very open Michigan supporter.
Oh, there's no denying.
Yeah, and apparently, Ryan Day, he calls Ryan Day Crying Day. And then they were talking about like not letting him into the stadium and all this other stuff. So it's been a big soap opera, with him on Big Noon, which is obviously a little bit different with Nick Saban on game day, which everybody knows where his allegiance lies, but he doesn't. With him not coaching anymore, it's really not the same thing. Portnoy is very, very.
Well, where Saban lies, but Saban will also cut.
But he's neutral. Yeah, Portnoy is not, right, and he makes no bones about it. He doesn't apologize for it.
And we're trying to get our ratings up and compete.
Of course.
I get it. A little news right now. We got USF up 31-7 on 25 Boise State. Looking good.
Yeah, dude, I saw that, man.
And in my opinion, I think USF has been slowly starting. Yes, it's been slow, but starting to put better seasons together where it's not the joke of the AAC anymore. They're slowly starting to put it together and maybe moving up to when they finally get a football field on campus, which I think they said 28 or 29, because they're still stuck in Raymond James, which they can't even sell out. But I mean, obviously we're going to the big game on Monday night, and obviously I know you'll be on the Caneswear show. I know I'm not a Canes fan, but I'll tune in with those guys on the Caneswear, and was it Gio Milan and Miami Mondo and
Gio Million, Gio, Miami Mondo, and then Brett from Caneswear.
I mean, they do a very good job. So I'll tune in, and they give you you get some good Miami news. But I mean, I think this game comes, in my opinion, it's Carson Beck versus Marcus Freeman. I mean, what is Marcus Freeman going to do with that defense? Because that defense is strong. What are we going to see from Carson Beck, who, like we've said on this show, he's got a lot of slack, a lot of slack that it was his fault. Which, if you look at it, he had week 4 to week 9, he was like 4 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. But if you look from after week 9, it was like 11-0, and before that was like 7-0. So that little, week 4 to week 9 wasn't great for Carson Beck. But if you look outside of that, it was really great. So, I mean, I think it's going to come down to what we'll see from Beck and the adjustments that Marcus Freeman can make, which he makes some great adjustments. But Marcus Freeman, what's the stat? Miami, Notre Dame hasn't beat Miami since like 19.
They're 0-6. They're 0-6 in Miami.
I thought it was like in the 60s But
Yeah, I think that spanned that long. I can't remember when that streak started, but
I thought it was sometime in the '60s. They haven't beat Miami since like 1960 something.
Yeah, they're over their. I think they're over the last six.
Miami.
Yeah, they're over the last 6 in Miami.
And did you hear about that? Ian Book was on. It might have been PFT and those guys.
I saw it.
He was like, yeah, we're coming back, and all of a sudden, some guy threw a beer bottle through our van and broke our glass in Miami.
100%. Listen, man. I'll before I tell you what I think of the game, man.
Right. I will say he goes, dude, that was one of probably the second loudest stadium we played that year after, Georgia.
Yeah. He was very, very candid about their experience, down there and the crowd noise. Quick story. I was me and my buddy Alvin, we went to South Bend in 2016 for the game, the Miami Notre Dame game. And man, listen, we were treated first class. I was I guess kind of surprised because, obviously given what that rivalry produced in the 80s and in the 90s, stuff like that, I just kind of expected if you're walking around with Miami colors in South Bend, you're not going to be treated well. It was totally the opposite. So, everywhere we went, whether it was a bar, a restaurant, at the stadium, the ushers, the people at the concessions, we never once were treated negatively. Like not ever, not once. So. I'm assuming, 9 years later, I would venture to guess that, nothing would change. But attention Notre Dame fans traveling to Miami this weekend, don't expect the same treatment. I'm telling you right now. Don't expect to go back to South Bend after this game and rave about how well you were treated, because I promise you it's not going to be the same. People in Miami don't carry themselves that way when it's a rivalry, especially against, if it's Florida State, Florida, you can throw Notre Dame in there. It's you're not going to be treated well. That's just, again, it's not bragging about it. It just is what it is, man. It's a different place. They don't take pride in being nice to people, being nice to rivals. You look, the NFL is the same thing. If you're, Bills fan, Jets fan, Patriots fan, they don't like you, right? So, I think in terms of the game, you're looking at, I think obviously super intriguing based on the team, based on where they're ranked and the whole deal. But if I'm sitting here picking, obviously not just because of who I root for, but to me, I think it's a game that Miami wins. When you're looking at why, pretty simple, honestly, right? You're looking at a guy in Carson Beck who's been there, done that in terms of the environment, in terms of the pressure, right? This is going to be nothing for him. This is a guy who went 24-3 in the SEC. His 3 losses, were 2 of them were to Alabama, right? And so, he's a guy who doesn't blink, in the face of pressure. I think he's a guy who welcomes it, and so again, it's been nothing new for him, come Sunday night, right? I think he's going to be at home, in this type of environment. I think he's built for it. He's been there, done that. Then you look on the other side of the ball, a guy in CJ Carr, who's, redshirt freshman with 0 snaps to his name at this point. He's got to go on the road in an environment that we know for sure is going to be hostile, right? This isn't, Bethune-Cookman. This isn't, some BS team where fans aren't going to be there, for like a noon kickoff. This is Sunday night. This is going to be tailgating, as long as weather permits, obviously, but tailgating for hours and hours. People in there just absolutely, juiced by the time, kickoff comes. And I think that environment is going to be wild, the same way that Ian Book was saying it was in 2017. It's going to be no different. I think you're looking at 2 really talented teams. I think you're looking at 2 teams with great offensive lines. You're looking at 2 teams with 2 new defensive coordinators. But I think at the end of the day, what Miami has that Notre Dame doesn't is home field and an experienced starting quarterback. And I think for that reason, I think Miami pulls it out. I'm looking at something in the, I'm thinking 27, 23, maybe something like that, somewhere kind of in that range. The over-under is 49.5. I can see it being somewhere, in that range. I think a closer game tends to favor a team like Notre Dame, because they'll have established a run and kind of control the line of scrimmage and had the advantage of time of possession and everything. But honestly, again, it's not because I root for them or anything, but I thought from the jump that this is a game that Miami wins. I just don't think that a quarterback who's never taken a snap is going to come out and thrive in that environment, even with a really good running game. I think they're going to load the box. Miami will. They're going to load the box and, stop the run and make him, try and have to win the game.
I mean, first off, going on the Miami fan base, and I'm sure if I offend you, but I don't think I will. I don't think class and University of Miami go hand in hand like it does Notre Dame. But also, it is easy to be classier when you do win. I will say I went to the University of Georgia, Oklahoma Rose Bowl in 2017. And first off, Georgia fans were great. They were great, very, very nice, knowledgeable, which is also great. But they won the game. So how would they do if you ended up losing that game? Would you be over shaking my hand like, hey, that was a great game, man? They came over and shook my hand. It was like, hey, it was a great game. I'm like, yeah, it was a great game. We probably saw one of the greatest college football games ever. But how would you do if you lose the game? So, I mean, being nice when you win's easy. And like Shador is very gracious and generous when he was winning at Colorado. When he was losing, he wasn't too nice to people. But, I mean, it's easy to be gracious and a gracious host when you win the ball game. I do think if Miami's got to stack the box because they have a solid 1-2 punch with Jeremiah Love, who's the best running back in college football, and then you do have Jadarian Price there, who's very good too. So they probably have the best 1-2 punch in college football. And I think the same thing with Ohio State, where CJ Carr, just don't lose the game. Get me 2 or 3 first downs. We're not going to lean on you to win the game. Just don't make the big mistakes to lose the game and let their defense eat and do their thing, what is Notre Dame has built on since Marcus Freeman took over the program is strong running game, and our defense will do the talking. I do think Miami wins. I think 27-23 in that range, that 3 to 4 point range is a good call. But if Notre Dame is dominating the run game, I think it can easily switch over because, we saw Jeremiah Love on one leg last year dominate the college football playoff. What is he going to do on 2? But, they're going to have to stack the box. If you're Miami, stack the box and make CJ Carr beat you. But, 2 different game plans. You got Carson Beck, who's definitely experienced as hell, and you can lean on him. And we'll see what Miami, having to replace. I can't remember their other running back, but Damian Martinez and their other running back having to replace all they did on the outside with a bunch of high recruited guys, 4 or 5 star guys, but you lose the experience with obviously, Xavier Restrepo, who's, anytime you say wide receiver in University of Miami, and then you say, oh, Xavier Restrepo holds the record for most yards and most receptions, that's not the name you're usually going to say. You're like, hey, you have Andre Johnson, you have Santana Moss, you have Reggie Wayne. I'm usually not going to say Xavier Restrepo if you're an average college fan. But which is kind of a testament how good he is, and a guy who just got waived, which I was like, dude, I'll take Xavier Restrepo on my team all day as a Jets fan. I'm like, kid's a gamer. Yes, he's not big, but he finds a way, and he's not fast, but he finds a way to. Restrepo kind of reminds me of Ladd McConkey. Not very big, not super athletic, but finds the hole in those same.
The thing is, man, Ladd McConkey, man, just he had sprinter speed, so obviously a little bit different. Just a more dynamic guy for sure. Restrepo, not that he wasn't good, but. Yeah, I'd say the similarities there are just not big time names, right? But I think guys who just they definitely they produce more than I think what people expected. Obviously, Ladd McConkey, a first round pick, and the whole deal. So, man.
coming down to it, I think it's going to be a great game, and I will not be leaving the couch Saturday through Monday.
Not at all, man.
Little big other football news. We did have some football news today with the Micah Parsons trade going to a quick thought before I know you got to get on the Caneswear show to talk some Canes football.
Yep.
Going to the NFL, what do you think about that deal?
Dude, very surprising. I was telling my brother, I'm shocked that Dallas traded him in the conference. I was a little bit surprised by that. I think $47 million a year for an edge rusher, man. I think he's got to hit. He's got to be in the defensive player of the year conversation every year, right? You have to be a consistent game wrecker, which which I think he's proven to be. So I'm very surprised, by the trade. Very surprised by the price tag, in terms of what they paid him. But it just became something that was untenable, man. So, a little bit shocked that it happened, but we'll see if it pays off. I'm a Niners fan, so I hate they traded him to the Packers, but we'll see what he's able to do over there, man.
I mean, so, he's great, but he's one player.
He's one player, exactly. Yeah, and again, an edge rusher, which
I will say they're paying him a ton. Yeah, defense wins, but you still got to score some offense.
Listen, look at what he was with what were the Cowboys last year with him on defense, right? So, there again, man, I mean, I know he missed some time and everything like that, but, there again, I mean, again, paying your edge rusher $47 million a year, that guy better be, leading the league in sacks and defensive player of the year,
Your secondary's got to create some turnovers, too. You can't just be like, oh, he's got you. He's got this 11.5 sacks. I'm like, yeah, that's something. But if you're not creating turnovers, you got to create some turnovers. And I mean, like what he's getting like $40 million a year or something like that, 120 guaranteed. It's
he's gonna be 47. The average yearly value is gonna be 47. 4 for 188. 4 for 188.
I mean, I get it. The Packers fans are jacked. I'm like, well, you better like cash in like now. Like you got a 2-year window. That's what your window is.
Yep.
And you better like the NFL window when you sign this guys are like 1 to 2 years.
Yep, for sure.
Probably put us on the clock.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, we got to wrap it up, man. We got to wrap it up. But hey, man,
I was surprised, and we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely a blast, man.
Our producers flashing the light in the back.
Yeah, 100%. He's in the earpiece. Telling us we got to wrap. But man, had a blast. We'll do it again next week. But definitely a great slate of games this weekend, man. Hope you get to enjoy it. I'll be in Miami. Hopefully, it'll be a wonderful result on Sunday. But appreciate everybody joining us tonight. For my man Russ, I am Q. Go ahead and like and subscribe to the show. Find us on X and subscribe to the show. We're not trying to sell you anything, man. Just trying to bring you some good content. Go ahead and help us out with that. So again, for my man Russ, I am Q. We will see you guys next week. Everybody have a good night.